Hey guys, welcome to the Distance Online program. We've put this video together to teach you how to actually go through the testing protocol at home, and we can collect some data of how to build your program that's going to be individualized to you. What we've done is we've emailed you through the testing list. It's broken up between 3 movement screening tests that we're going to teach you how to go through now, followed by 4 athletic tests. So what we can do is we can collect all this data about you and build a program that's customized to you. So let's get into it. So the very first test that we're going to start the process with in our movement screening is our knee to wall test. So we've got Meg here and she's going to help us do some demonstrations. So the first thing that we're actually going to be doing is measuring our ankle mobility. So we want to have a look and make sure that we've got the right amount of mobility in our ankles to start squatting and lunging and doing a few of the things that you're going to have to do in your program. And we also want to make sure that you're nice and symmetrical and we can identify some poor movement patterns from old injuries. So the first thing that's going to happen is Meg's going to jump into her position. So what you're going to need for this one is either a tape measure like we've got on the ground, or a 30cm ruler and a wall. Okay, so you can do this really, really easy at home. So what we're going to be doing, Meg's going to have her toes starting right up against the wall, heel down flat on the ground, and what she's going to do is she's just going to move her knee directly into the wall, okay? And we're going to be able to see if we can get that knee to touch the wall without the heel lifting off, okay? If you can get the knee to touch the wall without the heel coming up, what we're going to do is move back just a couple of centimeters at a time, all right? And we're just going to keep repeating the process all the way until we get to the furthest point where our heel starts to lift. So we want to find what's the most distance that we can actually get our foot back from the wall, our knee touching without the heel lifting, and we're going to take that measurement. So a couple of key indicators with this one, guys, is what we want to do is we definitely want to have our shoes off, okay? So barefoot is going to help us to keep our heel down, and if we have our shoes on, we're going to be hiding a little bit of that heel lift. So shoes off with this one. What we also want to make sure is that our hips are nice and square on. So Meg's hips are nice and square onto the box or the wall, whichever you're using there. We want to keep our back leg fairly straight in this one, okay? So if we lunge down, we're going to get a bit of a false reading. Alrighty, so what we want to do is we only want to move our front ankle joint, okay, and try to keep our back leg fairly straight and our hips square onto the wall. Alright, so moving on to our second movement screening test. So this one's going to be our overhead squat. So what we want to do is we want to actually have a visualization of how your squat pattern looks, okay, before we start programming. We want to know basically where you're at with your squat pattern in terms of development. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get you to film this one so we can have a bit of a look at it as well and get you to email that back to us. So what you're going to need for this one is a stick or just a mop or anything. If you're at the gym, they should have some sticks, anything that you can hold overhead. We're also going to get you to get a small block just in case we need to put a small chock underneath our heels for the next part. So you'll see on your screening sheet that you'll actually have a out of 3 scoring system for the next 2, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to show you what a 3 out of 3 looks like, and then what we have to do if we have to regress it back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to demonstrate what a 3 out of 3 in the overhead squat looks like. So Meg's going to take the stick up above head, okay? So we want that stick right in line with your spine, not out in front or not too far back, just right up ahead, okay? So what we want to do is we want to maintain that position. She's going to go through her squat now. What we want to try and achieve is our hip crease in line with our knees. So at 90 degrees, we want to try and get that hip crease from side on view to be right in line with the knees there, okay? So go through a couple of reps in that position there. If we can get those 2 things, so the stick in line with the spine still, eyes looking up forward, and our hip crease in line with our knees, that's what's going to class as a 3 out of 3. So if you find that you can't quite get a 3 out of 3 on this, what we're going to do is we're going to have a small regression back, and we're actually going to use the small block that we had at the start, and we're going to actually put it underneath our heels. So what we want to try and do is now give you a little bit of balance, a bit of support, and a little bit more ankle range. So what we're going to do is move back onto the block, stick back in the same position now, and Meg's going to go through the exact same position, working her way down, trying to get to that 90 degrees, and we're going to have a look and see if we can still keep the stick above our head, and we can actually achieve that full depth now that we've got that small block under our heels. If we still can't get that position that we're looking for, what we're going to do is we're going to score that a 1 out of 3. But if we can achieve all the right position of what we want to get in that position there, what we're going to do is we're going to give that a 2 out of 3 and then look to progress it up from there. So there's our overhead squat. So remember, we want you to try and film this one if you can, all right? So it's a little bit hard to identify if you're in the correct position while you're doing it. So if you film it, send it to us. We can also have a bit of a visualization and see if we're in the right spot. So make sure that you give yourself a good 5 or 6 reps in each progression to give yourself a chance to do it, and we'll go from there and see where we can progress that movement up to. Alrighty, so we're on to our last movement screening test. So this one's actually probably the most difficult for most people, but we're going to walk you through how we want to do. So this one's called our wall slide. Meg actually got fired from doing the demonstration on this one because she couldn't actually score a 3 out of 3. So I've had to step in and replace her on this one. So what we're going to look to do is basically just sit up against the wall like how I am now. So what we want to do is we want to start creating some contact points. So we want to come all the way into the wall. We want our head, shoulder blades and tailbone touching the wall if we can. So from this point, we're now going to bring our elbows back to the wall without losing the contact points on our head. We're then going to bring our wrists in upward rotation and also contact the wall. So once we connect our contact points, we're not allowed to lose them. So this is our starting position. So what we're going to do for a 3 out of 3 is if we can move our hands up the wall into a full overhead extension without losing our contact points, that's what we're going to call a 3 out of 3. So that's what we want to see. We want to see that you can actually maintain contact all the way through that overhead movement. So if we can't quite get there, what we're going to look to do is we're going to regress it from there. So if you can get to the wall and start moving those contact points up, but then we start to come away from the wall, alrighty, that's what we're going to call a 2 out of 3. So if we can get our contact points and start upward movement, okay, but we can't quite get there, that's all right, that's going to be a 2 out of 3. If you get into position and you create your contact points, but you can't move, okay, because as soon as you do, you start coming off the wall, that's what we're going to call a 1 out of 3. All right, so once we know this information, we can have a look and see exactly what we need to do to help correct that. So a couple of key considerations with this one. If getting into position, we can't quite get to the wall at all, I don't want you to force it, okay? We're just going to score that obviously a 0. There's something going on there. We don't want to over push it and create another issue. So if we're trying to get to position and there's just no chance of getting contact to the wall, we'll score it a 0 and don't push it from there. Alrighty, so we're done with our movement screening now and we've collected that information. And we're now going to move on to our athletic testing. So the first one we're going to go through is our push-up test. So this one can be done in one of 2 ways. We can either do it from our toes or from our knees, okay? So Meg's going to demonstrate them both, but it's up to you which one you feel more comfortable doing, okay? So a couple of key considerations with this one is we're going to learn how to set up our hands to begin with, okay? So we're going to come all the way down, chest on the ground. We're going to set our hands right in line with our heart, about a thumb length from the side of our chest. That way we're in a really good position to keep good control of our shoulders. So what we're going to do, once we've aligned our hands, we're going to come up to the start position. So Meg's going to go through just a couple on her toes. So we want to keep good core engagement all the way chest to ground and back up. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to maintain a really nice neutral spine all the way through. So for the test, what we're going to do is we're going to just go through, that'll do. We're going to go through and see how many you can do in just one continual effort with no break, okay? So whether it's 3 or 33, okay? So we just want to basically make sure that you can go through with good control for as many as you can and record that number. If we have to do them from our knees, the setup position's exactly the same. So we're still coming down, hands in line with our heart, pushing up onto the knees into the starting position, and then all the way down, nice light touch on the ground with our chest and back up and just record how many you can do. So that's going to be our push-up test. It's only one set and record how many we can do in one continual effort. So we're now going to move on to our lower body strength test. So this one we're going to use a 60-second squat test. So much like our squat position that we did in the movement screening, what we're going to do is we're going to have a slightly modified version of that, and we're actually going to utilize this to have a look at our strength capacity. So what Meg's going to do is she's going to go into a very similar squat position with her feet and toes slightly pointed out so our knees can track out over our toes. What she's also going to do is bring her hands out in front so we can keep a nice neutral spine. So we've got a box behind her. So what we want to try and do, if you're at the gym and you can set up a box that allows you to go down to that 90 degrees hip crease in line with our knee depth, we want to use that just so we can get some consistency in our reps. So with this one, we're going to set up a timer in front, okay? And we're going to go as many full depth squats down to the box, knees out, as we can in 60 seconds, okay? So this one's all about quality over quantity, okay? So what we want to see is we want to see every single rep done to a consistent depth with our eyes up and hands pointed forward so we can maintain that nice neutral position, okay? So if you want to film this one again, you can, all right? But we want to make sure that that form is 100%. So as many good quality reps as we can achieve in 60 seconds. All right, so moving on to our next athletic test, we're going to be testing our core strength, okay? So this is one that a lot of people have probably done in the past, but it's a good one just to start to get a bit of an idea of where your core strength and your core bracing ability is at. So what Meg's going to do is she's going to demonstrate our plank position. So a couple of key indicators with this one is we want to maintain that really nice flat back. So we don't want to let our hips drop too far down, okay? And we want to make sure that our hips stay up for the entire test. So as soon as you come up into that brace position and you're happy you're in a good spot, hit start on your timer. So have your watch or something in front of you that you can actually collect your time with. And all we're doing is we're just maintaining that brace position as long as we can. As soon as you feel that your hips drop down, so if Meg drops her hips right down, as soon as we enter that position, or we just tap out and we come all the way down to the ground, stop the timer, and we're gonna see how long we can maintain that really good position, okay? But as soon as you feel those hips drop down and you're not in the same position anymore, we're gonna finish the test and just collect that time that you can maintain a really good stable position. Alrighty guys, on to our very last test. So what we're gonna be doing now is testing our aerobic capacity. So we're gonna do this again one of two ways. So if we're in a gym setting or if you have a rower at home, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up a 5-minute row test. So really simple, we're gonna set the timer for 5 minutes. Okay, you're basically just gonna row at the best pace that you feel like you can maintain over that 5 minutes and record how many meters you can actually travel in that 5-minute period. If we don't have access to a rowing machine or a gym to be able to do that, what we're gonna do is you'll see on your testing card that there's also the option to do a 2.4 kilometer run. So really easy, we basically set it out at an oval where there's a 400-meter running track if you can get access to that, and just perform 6 laps of that in the best time you can, or set it up on your GPS watch. We just want to cover 2.4 Ks in the best time that you can and record that time. So it doesn't matter which stimulus you want to choose. If you've got access to the rower, obviously use that. Record your time. If you're going to do it out on the running track, 6 laps, best time you can. Go for it. All right, that's a wrap up on our testing. So what we need you to do is get those results down on paper, send it back to us. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use that data to start to build your first program block. We'll then jump on another Zoom call and have a catch up, run you through it, teach you how to basically go through each movement that we put in there, and we're gonna get started working towards those goals. So rip in, have fun.